Chapman here from Unshakable with April Chapman. We are live at Amfest 2025 in the TPUSA Rise booth, and I am sitting here with one of the premier filmmakers and cultural influencers of our time, Mr. Chad O. Jackson. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. What y'all do not realize is that Chad and I are very well connected behind the scenes. Like, we don't have to advertise our friendship or anything. We are about doing the Lord's work, and we're really about just influencing the culture, using our gifts. And one of those gifts, Chad, that you have is the gift of storytelling.
Yeah.
I want you to talk to the audience about your latest project, MLK Motives Unmasked.
Yeah.
Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so MLK Project, Motives Unmasked, is a recontextualization of the civil rights history.
Okay.
Obviously, if you're born in America, hell, if you're born anywhere in the world, then you're taught about the virtues of the civil rights movement,
Right.
about how extraordinarily great of a leader MLK was and how he brought the races together. A lot of that couldn't even be further from the truth. King was, unfortunately, a liar, a deceiver, a degenerate, and he used a Christian faith. He used a pulpit to push a very sinister motive. And what's unfortunate is that when you look at the way that Black America was trending from the end of slavery until around the 1940s and 50s,
Right.
it was trending in the right direction. This, of course, is covered by people like Walter E. Williams, the late Walter E. Williams, Thomas Sowell, and others. I've done the research. I know Vince Everett Ellison has done the research. So too has Dr. Vodi Bakum, the late Vodi Bakum. And again, you see this trending in the right direction, and then you see this kind of plummeting for the worse, this kind of downward trajectory. And as one Black scholar put it, we went from a trying race to a crying race. We learn how to cry, we learn how to beg and plead, and to basically be entitled as Black folks in America as a result of the civil rights movement. And Martin Luther King was, of course, at the head of that. So anyway, with the MLK Project, we really kind of, in a very meticulous way, really walk the audience through the way that this history transpired and basically how it was sanitized to be this thing where both folks on the right and the left embrace, not realizing just how detrimental of an impact the civil rights movement caused, particularly on Black America, but on America at large.
It's interesting that you bring up that both the left and the right kind of venerate MLK, and I think it's a struggle for those on the right to really come to grips with the information that you share in your film, because at that point we'd have to accept responsibility and say, wait a minute, they ran a Psyop on us too. What do you say to the conservative or the individual on the right who says, or who assumes that, well, is this about, bringing the things in his private life to light, which I know it's not that. I have seen the film. I'm, helping executive produce on that end of the film, and it's nothing of the sort. But how do you answer the person who wants to hold on to some sense of virtue that even though he may have done or been involved in some bad things, paint the picture for us about the subversive tactics and the socialistic Marxian worldview that he introduced by way of his civil rights advocacy, how it has effectively caused America, not just the Black community, to have an unhealthy relationship with the government?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Actually, a very loaded question.
It was, I know.
But the reality of it is, like, a lot of people, April, don't know what Marxism is, know what
don't.
communism is. It is, after all, the ideology that King pushed, but through a very subversive way. He didn't come out and say, I'm a communist, follow communism. He did it through a more clandestine, a more covert way, and a more deceptive way. A lot of people, like, for example, Delano Squires, I was just recently in a debate with a young man by the name of Austin Julio Broughton, who was a huge fan of MLK since he was 8 years old. I mean, if you see him on social media, he's often quoting King. He tries to sound like King. It's very disgusting, quite frankly. But he wanted to debate me, so he invited me to a podcast debate on Sean Kelly's podcast. And so I did it. And what's interesting about people like Broughton or Delano Squires, I love Delano Squires, by the way, is it's almost as if they are wanting evidence that King said, look, I'm a communist and I'm fooling all these Negroes in the church.
So they're not satisfied with the actions and
Yes.
the outcomes?
Right, exactly. I mean, Jesus himself said, you will know a tree by its fruit.
Right.
And so, and again, you're talking about skilled deception here, right? A skilled deceiver will never tell you, I intend to do something nefarious.
Right.
And they instead will, like in King's case, he would openly say things that kind of came off as though he's anti-communist.
Right.
But the reality of it is, a lot of things people point to is his book Stride Toward Freedom, I think is the name of the book. It was released in 1958. In this book, King wrote about, can a Christian be a communist? And then he proceeds to say no, but every reason that he gives as to why a Christian can't be a communist is actually plagiarized from a writer by the name of Robert J. McCracken. He wrote a book in 1951 called something having to do with questions, answering questions or something like that. But anyway, anybody can look up Robert J. McCracken, 1951. Questions People Ask is what it's called.
Okay.
And so King basically lifts a lot of thoughts and even in some cases verbatim passages from Robert J. McCracken to express his own distaste of communism, to which I ask, if you're really against communism, why use someone else's words to say it and try to pass them off as your own?
Right.
And, why not just outwardly come out and say, look, I'm against communism and here's why.
Right.
King didn't do that. And not only that, that book was heavily edited by Stanley Levison. So I say the communism piece. I say that word. A lot of people might not know what it is. What is communism? What is Marxism? In reality, it's fake freedom, right?
I call it just an anti-God, anti-Christian worldview.
Anti-God, anti-Christian worldview. It's the best way to explain it in I guess with an analogy would be the bait on the hook, right? That's what it is. It's something that makes promises that it can't keep, and to the extent that it fulfills those promises, conditions are actually much worse than they were before you started to get all hot and bothered about communism. Communism, what they envision is a world where there's no private property. Everybody has the same. Everybody's beholden to the state. You can't really move freely. You can't really think freely. To the extent that you have thoughts that go against what the approved narrative is, what we've seen in the past is that you are lined up against a wall and shot. You're thrown into mass graves. You're thrown into a concentration camp. That's the fate of somebody who doesn't believe in the. I mean, of course, that's an extreme, but that's the reality.
But that's where the logical end takes you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so, people need to understand this history to understand that King himself was trying to basically usher in the glories of what he thought was the glories of communism.
Right.
I think there's a debate to be had over whether he agreed with the totalitarian state of the communist worldview.
Right.
But he definitely was impressionable to what he believed communism would offer America.
I believe he was. I mean, when I read Ralph David Abernathy's account of the Poor People's Campaign, of how right after King's assassination, Ralph David Abernathy picks up the torch and was like, okay, well, this is what Martin wanted. And when you read them in their own words, give an account of this pie in the sky utopia, you're like, this is crazy.
Right.
They were actually petitioning the government for universal basic income. They wanted, give us jobs, give us free housing, give us some money, feed us. They were literally on their knees demanding, and they, during the Poor People's Campaign, would go up to the Department of Agriculture and all of the different federal departments and say, we're going to sit here until you guys come out and hear our demands and give them to us.
Right.
And I think that's an aspect of history that, and I completely respect Delano Squires. He's doing some great work at the Heritage Foundation, but what I would do is challenge them to say, read these individuals in their own words, and not just their words, but look at what they were doing, and then look at the outcomes. We are not a people that value liberty and to be free of government dependence, but rather it ushered us to look at the government as God, to share custody of our children with
Right.
the government in
Right.
all aspects. So I appreciate you spelling out how your film is going to walk people through that. And when we say, you guys, when we say the film is going to walk you through it, Chad is taking you in the kitchen,
Right.
okay? You
Yeah.
you were telling us how you made the whole meal
Mhm.
and giving us a deep dive, and I think that's what I appreciate so much about your scholarship and the work that you are doing. Ultimately, though, there's this bigger question in the room that is actually we're going to have a broader discussion about this next month. We've scheduled to have that debate with Vince Everett Ellison. You and him are going to sit down because you have a fundamental different view of the right than Vince does.
Right.
And you're more on the side of, yeah, the left sucks, they're bad. But you have a lot of smoke for the right. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to ask you to provide an apologetic defense for why you feel the way that you do now.
Mhm.
But if you could just give us maybe one thing that you fundamentally have a problem with, even though this is a conservative conference, we're open to the friendly fire here.
Yeah.
We are. Talk to us a little bit about what are some of your issues?
Well, what I'm against is big tent partisanship. That's
Flesh
what I'm
that out
against.
for me. I like that.
Yeah. So I'm against. I mean, I'm a Christian,
Yes.
which means I'm an alien on this
Right.
planet.
Sojourner passing through.
Sojourner passing through. I am to be in the world and not of the world.
Okay.
At the same time, we are commissioned as human beings and as Christians to have dominion over the earth and to subdue it.
Right.
We, as God's creation, we have to make for peace, structure, stability in the land
We do.
that we inhabit. And so what that means in an American context or even in a state or local context is participating civically.
Right.
It means not only because by the time it gets to politics, it's already too late. Whatever it
Yeah.
is, people underestimate this, April. And I'm going to try to make this point the best way I possibly can.
Okay.
When you study history, right, and you study what we call the social engineers, who are typically leftist liberals,
Right.
these people did not spend a lot of time studying the cognitive sciences, the soft sciences, group sciences, just for kicks and giggles.
No.
Like, no, they have a strategic plan with what they're doing.
Right.
And so they're very much into what we call agitation and propaganda.
Okay.
Now, you see a lot of agitation and propaganda on the left,
Yeah.
but they have a plan for the right as well. What they're trying to do is they're trying to provoke what we call reactionaryism, right? So
Okay.
when the left does something that's so off the wall, so agitative, so propagandistic, the purpose of it is to cause a reaction
From the right.
on the right.
Okay.
Now, you're going to get reaction in various flavors and shapes. Some of it's going to be rational. A lot of it's going to be irrational.
Right.
What they're banking on is the irrational reaction of the right.
Like the woke right.
Exactly. So
okay.
to the extent that the right acts irrationally in reaction to the agitation they see on the left,
Right.
you now have this kind of seeming, this illusion of there being unrest. And when that happens, the federal government steps in and they try to pass legislation, and the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we lose more and more liberty.
One last question. As we are here with TPUSA Rise, they are about reaching, influencing, and strengthening and equipping this next generation, wanting to lead with faith, absolutely starting with a foundation of family, and doing it in order to influence the culture. Does that sound like something that you can get behind? I think it does. But how would you like to see that done?
Yeah, I mean, so the fact of the matter is, when it comes to any issue or problem that we face
Right.
on an individual level or on a local level or whatever the case may be, by and large, what we see is politics as people the go-to, and we've been conditioned to think that way, especially in our schools. We're conditioned and we're trained to be statists. To the extent that we have a problem, to the extent that we have an issue, our default is what can government do
That's
versus
the
what
wrong
can I do for
question.
myself. And this is why I like, people like Booker T.
T.
Washington
Washington.
and Joseph H. Jackson and George Washington Carver and others. And there's I mean, even in, among a lot of white people that we look to in history,
Right.
The question was, can you put your best foot forward? Can you
Right.
rise to the occasion? Stand up and be counted like a man.
Right.
These were the kind of slogans, and these are the kind of things that we got behind by and large. But once again, as you move into the 50s, into the 60s, and you see the rise of these social movements, the civil rights movement, second wave feminism, the gay liberation movement, which would later become the LGBT movement.
Right.
When you look at all these social movements, the hippies, the free love movement, what you see is this kind of sense of entitlement sweeping in, and we learn how to complain. We learn how to be professional complainers. We learn how to be disillusioned with the government. The government needs to do it for me. And that's not to say that the government does everything right.
Right.
They
but
deserve
there's
the
so
criticism.
Much more that we could be
but there's
doing.
so much more that we can be doing. And so it's to that extent, I'm totally behind what the mission of what Rise is doing.
Right.
Because, I mean, people do need to be equipped. They need to be empowered. It's interesting because, like, you look at a lot of young black folks, especially in the inner city, because, I mean, I visited West Baltimore. I visited some of the rough parts of Dallas and Fort Worth and others. And there's just a sense of there's nobody historically black who's done anything positive. It's always been the struggle, right?
Gosh. They don't have enough
When
examples.
you think of black history, typically what comes to mind, doesn't matter if you're on the right, left, white, black, whatever, you think of those who fought for some cause, so those who fought for some struggle.
Somebody
right?
either got beat up for something.
Exactly. Exactly. We don't know about Joseph H. Jackson buying 400 acres of farmland so that people can actually buy their own farmland. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, bought the 400 acres, allowed farmers to work there for, rent-free so they can pocket the money and then go buy their own farmland. There's a lot of stories like that. George Washington Carver's story is a tremendous story, right? Philip Payton Jr., who bought, real estate in Harlem in 1906 and 1907, right? When it was a predominantly white community. There's plenty of stories like this in history, but a lot of black folks, unfortunately, are completely unaware of this history, unaware of these facts. And so whether it's what you guys are doing with Rise, whether it's what I'm doing with filmmaking, whether it's what, some of my friends back in Dallas are doing in terms of starting, internships or apprenticeships for youngsters to come in and to learn a trade or to learn a profession, to equip them, to empower them, to give them, because that's the difference between an affluent community, be it right or be it white or black. I happen to live in a particularly affluent black community there in Dallas where I live. The difference between those kids and some of the kids in the inner city is the level of confidence that you see.
In their own ability.
In their own ability.
Right.
And so we need to find a way to really build that confidence back up. So whether it's through Rise, preferably if it's in the home with mom and dad, I'm all for it, 100%.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. I am just so blessed to have met you and that we work together and we're putting out great content together. Tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Chad O. Jackson. If you want to learn about the MLK project, you can find out about that at chadojackson.com.
Absolutely. Love you, Chad.
Thank you.
Glad to sit down with you.
All right.